All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really complex, literally 150-year-old history surrounding the Babri Masjid site. We're going to objectively map out this entire timeline, step by step, because honestly, to understand one of the most significant legal and social events in modern Indian history, we really have to go back to its deepest roots. We're going to break this whole timeline down into 5 key parts. We'll start with the origins and early disputes. See how the dispute escalates, look at the 1992 demolition, untangle the legal aftermath, and finally, break down the final verdict.
So let's jump right into part 1, origins and early disputes.
To understand the whole shebang, we have to start at the physical beginning, and that traces back centuries to Mir Baqi. He was a general of the Mughal Emperor Babur, and he's the one who actually built the Babri Masjid. So that's our baseline, the structural start of this massive timeline.
Fast forward to the 1850s, and things are already getting complicated. Tensions were rising, and it got to the point where the British colonial authorities actually stepped in to officially divide the site. It was an early attempt at a physical compromise. They ruled that Muslims were allowed to pray inside the mosque, while Hindus were allowed to pray in the outer courtyard.
Now, that 1850s decision, it really set the stage for everything that followed. Because a few decades later, in 1885, we see the very first court case filed. A Hindu priest formally asked to build a temple in that outer courtyard, but the courts rejected it at the time. Then we jump to a massive turning point, December 1949. Idols of Lord Ram were discovered inside the mosque itself. So what did the authorities do? They declared the site disputed, locked the gates, and completely stopped prayers for both communities. The site was, for all intents and purposes, entirely frozen.
Which brings us to Section 2. The dispute escalates.
The 1980s roll around, and man, the tension really skyrockets here. It's a dense 5-year period. In 1984, Hindu organizations launched the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, specifically demanding a temple at the site. Just 2 years later, February 1986, a massive court order changed the game by unlocking the mosque to allow Hindus to pray inside. And then, by November 1989, a foundation stone for a Ram temple was actually laid near the Masjid. And importantly, our source material notes this was done with government sanction.
Now, you might be wondering how the other side reacted to that 1986 order. Well, it was a direct cause and effect situation. The decision to unlock those gates sparked immediate opposition. We saw protests from Muslims, which then directly led to the official formation of the Babri Masjid Action Committee. So at this point, the lines are just firmly drawn.
And that intense friction leads us directly into Section 3, the 1992 demolition.
December 6, 1992. This is the absolute climax of the physical dispute. On this day, the Babri Masjid was completely brought down by a large mob. This happened during a rally organized by Hindu nationalist groups. In a matter of hours, a 16th-century structure was just gone, and this abruptly shifted the entire nature of the conflict forever.
So, what happens next? The government is suddenly dealing with a completely stunned nation. Right after the demolition, they set up what was called the Librehand Commission. Their sole job was to untangle and investigate exactly what happened and who was involved in the events surrounding the demolition.
With the physical structure gone, the battle shifts entirely. Let's look at Section 4, the legal aftermath.
We are now looking at years of intense battles in the courtrooms. In 2010, there was a major attempt at a judicial fix. The Allahabad High Court came in and ordered a really complex 3-way split of the land. They divided it into equal 1/3 shares, a third to Hindus, a third to the Nirmohi Akhara, and a third to the Sunni Waqf Board. It's kind of fascinating because it almost mirrored that British division from the 1850s, just reimagined through modern property law.
But of course, it didn't end there. Here is our final section, the final verdict. The Supreme Court of India eventually took up the case, and they completely overturned that 2010 ruling. In 2019, they made their decision. They awarded the entire 2.77 acres of the disputed land specifically for the construction of a Ram temple. So, no more dividing it up, it was awarded as one single whole plot.
At the exact same time, recognizing the other party in the dispute, the Supreme Court mandated that Muslims be allotted a completely separate plot of land. They were granted 5 acres elsewhere in Ayodhya to construct the new mosque.
Now here is a really crucial nuance you cannot miss before we wrap up this timeline. While the Supreme Court resolved the land title dispute in favor of the temple, they explicitly declared that the 1992 demolition of the mosque was an unlawful act, So they balanced giving a definitive property resolution with a very strict legal condemnation of the physical destruction itself.
Which finally brings our physical timeline to a close. Following that 2019 Supreme Court verdict, the very next year, in August 2020, the foundation stone for the new Ram Temple was officially laid in Ayodhya. It basically closed the loop on a movement that, as we saw, had formally kicked off way back in 1984.
As we look back at this, frankly incredible timeline, from Mir Babaki through the 1850s, those escalating movements in the 80s, the demolition in 92, and finally, this ultimate legal resolution by the Supreme Court, we are left with a pretty profound question. How does resolving a 150-year conflict through the courts reshape the intersection of history, legality, and faith for future generations? It is definitely something to chew on long after this explainer ends. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking out the facts.